Once you've completed your district grant project, it's time to complete the final report, hopefully within 1 month of the completion of the grant. In this session, we'll take a look at what information is needed to document club expenses, how to enter the documentation into DAC-DB, and how to fill out the final report. First, documentation needed. Rotary is looking for proof that, 1, you have actually spent the money in the way you specified when you requested the grant, referred to in DAC-DB as expense receipts. And 2, that your club, and not one of your members or some outside entity, has paid for the expense you're claiming, referred in DAC-DB as expense payments. While specifics of each grant differ, there are basically 2 ways that money is spent for a grant. The first way is you purchase the items that you're using for the grant. For example, you purchase the book bags and school supplies you will be awarding to an elementary school scholarship recipient. In this case, the expense receipts will consist of the paid receipts from the places such as Amazon or Walmart where you purchase the items. The expense payments will usually consist of canceled club checks reimbursing the people or organizations who did the actual purchasing. In this case, and in all the rest of the cases, when you present a check, it should be a copy of the canceled check from the bank, not the copy of the check that you just wrote. The second way is you donate money to an organization who will use it to purchase items that will fulfill the purpose of your grant. For example, you donate money to the Y, which has a program of buying shoes for kids as they go back to school. In this case, the expense receipt will be an acknowledgement from the organization receiving the donation, often a letter of thanks, specifying the amount of money they received, the use to which it will be put, and naming your club as the donor. The expense payment will be a copy of, again, the canceled check made out to the organization to which you made the donation. Some clubs have asked the receiving organization to provide receipts to show that they actually purchased the items that they're thanking you for. This is not necessary and just makes more work for you and them. Unless you are reimbursing them for specific purchases, all we need is the acknowledgement letter from them saying the money has been received from you and for what it will be used. Now, entering expenses in DAC-DB. Before entering your expenses in DAC-DB, you need to have copies of the receipts and payments that you will be using scanned into your computer. We have found that PDF files are more consistently readable than our JPEGs. This is because JPEGs are often of such low resolution that they are too small to read. Trying to enlarge them only makes them more blurry. We're looking for the cleanest possible documentation of your receipts and payments. This means that we're looking for a copy of a canceled check, not your whole bank statement. We're looking for receipts that clearly show what was purchased, where it was purchased, and how much the items cost, especially if things that don't apply to the grant are also purchased on the same receipt. We need to have the relevant items clearly designated on the receipt. And we're looking for receipts we can read easily, not those that are smudged or that we have to turn sideways to read. Sometimes clubs will purchase items using club credit cards and then use copies of their bank statement as proof that the items were purchased and paid for by the club. A better way to document this is to make it clear on the receipt that the items are being purchased with a club credit or debit card. Then reimburse the club with the check from your grants account for the items purchased and use that canceled check as proof of the expense payment. Remember that, per the memorandum of understanding that you signed as a condition for getting the grant, the club must have a separate grants checking account from which expenses are to be paid. Be sure you're accessing the correct Rotary year, and you can change that by pressing on the blue button in the upper right-hand corner to change year. And access your grant using the pencil next to the name of the grant, not clicking on the name of the grant itself. In the recent past, documentation of expenses was entered in two places. The Budget tab was changed to record what was actually spent, and the documents that prove the expenditures were uploaded into the Documents tab. These tabs should no longer be used for that purpose. Your budget tab should retain the original budget that you entered in requesting the grant, and your expenses and payments will now be entered through the Expenses tab. The Expenses tab has three sections: one to enter the expense receipts you've collected, one to enter the expense payments you've collected, and a summary which will equal 0 if receipts and payments entered balance. To enter a receipt or payment, click on the Add Receipt or Add Payment button. A screen will appear on which you can enter information about the receipt or payment you're entering, such as the vendor, receipt or check number if applicable, amount of receipt or payment, and any comments on things you feel might need further clarification. Then press the Add button. You'll be brought back to the main Expenses tab window. Go back into the receipt or payment by pressing the pencil next to the entry, and the same pop-up you saw earlier will appear. Press the Choose Files button, which accesses the files that are uploaded on your computer. You'll choose the file that this entry refers to. When it has been successfully uploaded, you'll see a green line with the word Uploaded and a small copy of the file to which it refers. Press Save to complete the process. You can check that the proper file has been uploaded and that it is legible by clicking on the link in the Docs field next to the document you've added in the Expenses tab. A copy of the file you've uploaded will appear. When all receipts and payments have been entered, the summary portion of the Expenses tab will now equal 0. And finally, completing the final report. Access the Final Report tab and fill out questions 2, 4, and 5. Those questions ask how many people benefited from this project, how many Rotarians were involved, and what the Rotarians did. Be sure to save the report. If you don't fill out and save the report before pressing the Collect Final Signatures button, you will be unable to go back and fill it in later. You will need to send the answers to those questions to me, and I will fill them out for you. A word about the signatures needed for multi-club grants. In the past, each club participating in a multi-club grant needed to sign the grant with 2 signers from their club. Some of the clubs who had primary responsibility for the finances and execution of the grants had problems getting the signatures they needed from other clubs to complete the grant. So at this time, we are requiring signatures from the primary club only in hopes of making the process go smoother. In this case, you can see Carthage has been set up as a primary club for this grant. We do ask, however, that at least one person from each of the other participating clubs be set up in the Club Contacts tab so they can follow the progress of the grant and the final report approval process if they wish. Finally, you'll press the Collect Club Signatures button and follow up with the signers for your club to be sure they sign the report and submit it for district approval. This presentation gave a brief overview of what information is needed to document club expenses, how to enter the documentation into DACDB, and how to fill out the final report tab. However, the specifics of your grant may differ. If you have questions, contact me, Karen Morris, at kmorris@triad.rr.com.